So welcome everybody to today's Wizards of Ox live session. We are going to be talking about pain and things that can help with pain and even why you might be getting pain. So hoping this is going to be a really helpful session for everyone. I'll introduce our available wizards at the moment. We believe our fellow wizard Patricia De La Garza will be with us sometime over the hour, but who you have right now is myself, Monique Attinger. We have the lovely Karla Wiersma, and we have the gorgeous Susan Owens. And so, as always, we are here to talk about an interesting topic, and today's topic, as I said at the beginning, is pain. So I'm going to just show a quick overview of a handout that will be available with this recording later, but just to give you kind of an overview of what we're going to be talking about overall. So I will share my screen. Okay, so here you have it. We've got a short wizard's pain guide, and what we want you to understand is that oxalate can trigger pain, and at least one form of oxalate, insoluble oxalate, can turn up as crystals. And absolutely, crystals can be causing physical damage inside your body. And there's research to support that we can have oxalate turn up in the joints, in the bones, in the muscles, in the gut. And this can be a clear trigger to things like the inflammasome. The challenge with oxalate is not all approaches to managing pain will work for everyone. And like many things in the oxalate world, it simply isn't one size fits all. So no, you are not crazy or weird. We're here to tell you that this is a real thing. And it very much depends on the mechanism that the painkiller uses, as well as how the pain is being generated in your body. So multiple ways we can look at this. And I will stop sharing and turn over to Susan Owens, who is going to give us some background here and talk about the inflammasome, and also talk about inflammasome inhibitors and all sorts of good things that we need to know about to set
you need to activate me.
I need to activate you. Oh yes, you need to be able to share the screen. Give me half a second here. All right, you should have powers now.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. Let me minimize this little thing so I can see better. Okay. For many of our members, reducing oxalate was an effective treatment for pain. But what kind of pain was improved? We asked our members. So this is the results of a poll that we did this last week. And so you can see the top thing was joint pain, and then bone or skeletal pain, muscle pain, gastrointestinal pain, emotional pain, frozen shoulder, bladder, hips, fatigue, shoulders, nerve pain, headaches, including migraine, lower back stiffness, skin, foot pain, which you have when walking, tinnitus, fibros, tender points, in the kidney, the uterine area, the sinus and the skull, and male genital areas. So we have, just a lot of people that are pleased with how reducing oxalate has helped their pain. So we then did another poll to find out which commonly advocated treatments for pain had failed to reduce pain in our group members. Some of them were opiates, and they were ineffective in some of us. So this was the results from that poll. And these were the things that had not worked in TLO members. And that included aspirin, and Tylenol was huge. It was the biggest one. Motrin, naproxen sodium, or naproxen, some people call it, Tylenol with codeine. And then we get into our opiates like morphine and oxycodone and hydrocodone and fentanyl, Dilaudid, tramadol, gabapentin, which is another widely prescribed medication, and this Mobic. What treatments had been effective that our members had used? The discussions on that thread on our group brought attention to a few surprising treatments that had worked. One of the funny ones that I was surprised to hear, some members reported positive effects from this ointment called Tiger Balm. And its important ingredients for pain relief were camphor and menthol. Now, that was interesting because this reminded me of a product that my great-grandfather patented that contained camphor and was used to treat heat rashes and other rashes. And so this is my great-grandfather right here, William L. DeWoody. And you can see right here that it contains camphor. And then after everybody got air conditioning, Mexana started to be used as a foot powder and was bought by Dr. Scholl's. And I think it's finally off the market because everybody has air conditioning. And then here's the Mexana after Dr. Scholl's bought it. If you still have some, you might still be able to use it, but don't breathe it out because that's found to be kind of dangerous to inhale this stuff.
Interesting to me that there's zinc oxide in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they figured out some things way back when, didn't they?
They did. They did.
So members also mentioned that antihistamines had been effective for pain, and that has actually been shown by some scientists. Here's a study looking at antihistamines used as analgesics. And then some members spoke highly of the pain relief that they got from steroids. Steroids reduce inflammation, but they carry major risks in long-term use. So these are the mechanisms of action for anti-inflammatory steroids. And this is where this came from. So they can suppress your immune system and the mast cells and T cells and cytokines, decrease permeability in your capillaries, reduce the expression of some immune factors, and reduce prostaglandin, leukotriene, and platelet activating factor levels. So what is known about the long-term effects of using steroids? And you've heard of NSAIDs. Well, these are the SAIDs. So what we have is this chart from this website, and it was just a really good summary, so that's why I included it here. These occur with prolonged use of high doses and Cushing's disease. Now, I have to say that when I was 13 years old, I was put on steroids and I got Cushing's disease while that happened. Psychiatric, sleep disturbance, mood disturbances, and psychosis. And I was actually affected by that. I got really angry at the world. And then skin issues. I definitely got acne. I definitely got hirsutism and gained about 40 pounds, something like that. Neurologic, neuropathy, cardiovascular hypertension, osteoporosis. I wasn't on it long enough to get that, but even muscle issues, diabetes mellitus, adrenal cortex suppression, immunological issues, ophthalmic like cataracts and glaucoma, and growth retardation. So not really happy things to happen to you. So let's talk a little bit about opiates. This is an article that talks about that when you detoxify morphine, that can actually lead to having more pain. And that's not just losing the effect of it, but it's actually produces hyperalgesia, which is more pain. And so down here, they talk about that, opiate-induced hyperalgesia. And so to make sense of that, you need to understand that when you attach glucuronic acid to morphine at the 3 place, then that is detoxifying it. But if you put it, oops, I did that too fast. Stop that. Page up. This one provides the pain relief. Okay. So let's talk more about glucuronidation, which is a conjugating step. That means you're putting 2 things together that can activate some things and deactivate others by setting them up for secretion. This chart, furnished by Genova years ago, outlines the many ways we detoxify drugs in phase 2 detoxification. This process is how we modify fatty substances that the body makes to make them soluble so that they can exit in urine. When they are still fat soluble, chemicals can store in your body fat, and you don't want that to happen. Phase 1 detoxification still permits them to store, and that's why we need phase 2. All of these reactions require enzymes to happen, and most of the substrates that use those enzymes attach the substrate to molecules and are related to the sulfur or methylation chemistry. So glutathione is sulfur, sulfate is sulfur, taurine is sulfur. Methylation is kind of close. This is more like vinegar, and this is glycine, which is actually something that is made by the enzyme that, if it's broken, causes primary hyperoxaluria. For issues related to pain, the important column to notice is glucuronidation, this one right here, which actually attaches a substance that is more like glucose and less like sulfur things. So this is glucuronidation. You might notice salicylates in this list, and morphine and Tylenol. And then down here, you might notice that there's fat-soluble vitamins, bile acids, melatonin. It helps you sleep, and steroid hormones, and even bilirubin, which is what is not being processed correctly when your baby is born and they have to go under those lights. You remember that? Okay, so this is phase 1 detoxification. And there's a whole bunch of enzymes, they call them P450 enzymes. And then phase 2 is over here. And this is what we just talked about. But the whole point of this is to get rid of it, to secrete it. And it can go either in bile or it can go into serum where it ends up in urine eventually. So these drugs are listed in Wikipedia and make demands on glucuronidation. So that means when you're taking these drugs, you're stressing that part of your chemistry. And I learned about this with my mother because she was using too many things that needed to be glucuronidated, and she lost her pain relief and was in excruciating pain. And the only way we got her out of the pain was to get her to quit taking pain medicines, which is kind of weird, but that's how it worked. And so you can kind of look down this list of things, and you may recognize something that you've taken or that you are taking right now. Okay. Now, glucuronidation is, again, transferring glucuronic acid to what you're attaching it to. Okay. And here is an example of that process. but these are the gene families that humans have where that is accomplished. And my family actually has some problems in the UGT1 family. And that was where my mother was in trouble because she had two different defects on that. And she also had a defect on her morphine receptor. So pain relief with endogenous opioids. Opioids act by engagement of specific cell surface receptors, the opiate receptors, which are designated mu, alpha, and delta. The natural ligands, or things that attach to the opiate receptors, are the so-called endogenous opioid peptides, such as the enkephalins. And I put it in red because we're going to talk about it again. And then endorphins, you've probably heard of those, and endomorphins, and there's also some called dynorphins. The opioids have a variety of clinical effects, but are predominantly known and used for their profound pain relieving effects. Now, phenylalanine may potentiate pain relief by keeping enkephalins from losing their pain relieving strength and by inhibiting the enzyme that destroys enkephalins called enkephalinase, and that's talked about in this article here. Now, avoidance of opioid peptides recognized when present in urine was found to improve behavior in autism. This research led to the popularity in autism of a gluten and casein-free diet. And so these were some of the players on that. This is Kali Reichelt, who also studied how platelets make serotonin. And he has gone on to his heavenly reward. This is Paul Shattuck, and he was really my mentor many years ago in the autism world. And he was rewarded the Order of the British Empire, which is one step less than becoming oh, I can't think of the word. But anyway, he was a past president several times of the World Autism Organization. And unfortunately, about 2 days ago, his wife died. So you can be praying for him. Richard Deese also found these dietary peptides would impair, like morphine does, sulfur absorption in the gut. So this may be how you connect this whole opiate problems with gluten and casein and soy with developing problems in your sulfur chemistry. And that is not unique to autism. That would happen in anybody.
There's very good research on essential oils for a lot of benefits. But again, this is not a one size fits all kind of area for people who are dealing with pain or any other symptom. The challenge here can be multiple, one of which is, I think for some people, essential oils can be triggers depending upon which oil you're talking about. And in some cases, they're very powerful. If you think about an oil of oregano as an example, we've had many discussions on the TLO groups about how, in terms of acting as an antibiotic, this thing has some serious clout. So, essential oils are one of those areas where we can have some tools in our toolkit, but we may have to operate a little bit carefully in terms of trying them maybe with as gentle an approach as possible to begin with. And for those who have developed over time some salicylate issues, essential oils can be a fairly significant source of salicylates in some cases. And so that's another area where oxalate may have impacted our ability to detox a thing like salicylate. And so you may not get a fully paradoxical reaction to using something like an essential oil, but there are places where certainly we've heard on the group about paradoxical reactions to things. And you alluded to this, Susan, because you said, we had to get our mother off pain control in order to get her pain control. I mean, that's like a classic where you've had this completely paradoxical reaction to something, right?
Well, I will tell you a little story, which is kind of amazing. There was a time when I was spending a lot of time trying to link into people of different fields that were interesting to me, and I was asked to link into somebody who was actually writing software for pain doctors. And so I thought, oh, great, this is my moment, And so I asked him if he had ever heard of somebody like my mother who was taking pain medicine. It was actually causing, incredible and excruciating pain. And he said, yes, that there was a group of people that was true of. And it was so like, it calmed me down in the sense that I thought, well, it's not just this weird thing that just happened to my mother, but this is something that may happen to other people. But
Right.
people need to know that. And I will tell you that when I was, trying to help my mother, and, Vera's her daughter, some of the Medicare people were really like not happy with me at all, because they wanted to say, of course the pain medicine works. And I was going, I'm sorry, I know my mother, I know what she looks like when she's in excruciating pain. And I'm telling you, when you give her the medicine, she's not better, she's a lot worse. So please understand that whatever you observe in your family or your loved one, please understand that, your eyes are good eyes, your family. And so don't write it off just because it's something that you observed and maybe it doesn't agree with whatever the narrative is out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would 100% back you on that one, because this is one of those places where, like, especially when you're talking about pain control, where people can have very unexpected kinds of reactions to these medications. And, it's not always a fully paradoxical kind of thing, but in my own family, nobody can take opioids because they get so constipated they can't excrete, and this is not helpful either, right? So that's one of those ones where, and I think you've spoken on this before too, Susan, that's the opioid receptors can affect the motility of the gut. And yeah, I won't touch those things with a 10-foot pole. And my mother has always insisted on having some other form of pain control than any kind of opioid, because she can't. It just doesn't work.
Well, I have two stories about that. One was a friend of mine who had surgery for cancer, and they put him on morphine. And the treatment for the cancer and the surgery was like nothing, not a big deal. But oh my gosh, the morphine caused him extreme problems with constipation. And so that was one of my first times to really hear that story. And then I heard it later when I was on a group for a developmental disability called Rett syndrome. And there was somebody there whose daughter went into the hospital because of having constipation pain. And you know what they put her on when she went in the hospital? Just guess.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh dear.
They put her on morphine. And the thing that was so tragic about that, and I already knew the story because it had happened to my neighbor, and you remember those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And by the time she got out of the hospital, that child was on 17 medications.
Yeah, that's
now I will say that the way it started with the morphine, and then they said, oh, well, to treat that side effect we need this drug, and then to treat that side effect none of these were treating specific issues that she had. They were all treating side effects of the medications that she was taking, and she ended up with this slew of medications at the end. So be very careful, when you can kind of see that sort of thing is happening to a loved one. because, maybe a lot of it's not necessary if you get back to try to getting to the prime mover of whatever's going on.
Yeah, something that's specific for the original problem as opposed to necessarily something that's generic, and which you've seen a bad side effect for, then it's probably time, and I'm going to make a pun here, to move on to something else, so that things like constipation, like this is clearly not isolated, when I know of several people who have the same problem, and we have it running all through my family. So there's
right. It is not a minor thing. It is things that, really is well known. And, if the people that are helping you don't know it, then it's just time to learn it.
So, and given that Karla hasn't been able to get back on yet, maybe we defer the essential oil conversation till a little bit later and get you back on, Susan.
Okay, we can do that. And so
because we can fold it in. We'll build the bridge so that people understand how things relate to each other.
Okay. So being inflamed can also cause pain. The big perpetrator of the expansion of inflammation is a previously unknown structure that was discovered in 2002. Now, that wasn't very long ago, and that was an important year. A lot of stuff changed in 2002. So it is basically the working part of the immune system, and it's more important really than antibodies as far as the function of the immune system. The inflammasome is what I'm talking about it, and it is how our innate immunity works. By innate, we're talking about that's built in. It's not adaptive, like you're adapting to a something that is happens to you. I don't know why it's going. Is advancing without my advancing it. Okay, here we see the, you can see how the studies have grown, and I just renewed this, and you can see, we're not very far into 2023, but it's going to be way out here, the research on this. So crystals of oxalate and uric acid and other types of crystals activate the inflammasome. And so this is a picture of somebody that was showing how many diseases have been associated with overactivation of the inflammasome. But it has basically two routes: the microbial attack, and that's things like viruses and bacteria and virus molds and things like that. And then there's also a sterile attack, things like oxalate, uric acid, and nystatin. Now, this paper here is talking about the inflammasome and its role and therapeutic potential in pain treatment. So this paper discusses how the inflammasome relates to these forms of pain. Bladder pain, cancer pain, chemotherapy pain, chronic wound pain, gouty arthritis, and interstitial cystitis, spontaneous pain, and stimulus evoked pain. So out of 1,856 articles on the inflammasome right now, like of yesterday, 400 of them were talking about pain. So this is not some little side trip. This is real. And then I also wanted to talk about that, scientists have figured out all kinds of, fancy inflammasome inhibitors that have all these letters and numbers that you don't know what the world they're talking about. But these are normal, everyday things that have been used in health food stores forever. And they knew they worked. They didn't necessarily know how they worked because nobody had discovered the inflammasome yet, but now we know that they are all inflammasome inhibitors. So among those, green tea, certainly people have, thought about benefits of that. MSM, 3-hydroxybutyrate, which is a ketone, and you can take that as a supplement. Fish oils, curcumin, which is the extract of, I'm sorry, just I'm forgetting what it is, but it's an
turmeric. It's the extract from
turmeric. There we go.
Sorry.
Turmeric. It just escaped my mind. Turmeric is very high in oxalate, and you do not want to use it. But curcumin you can use, and you can even use it to flavor your food. And then resveratrol, which has a very a lot of people advocating its use. Sulforaphane, olive leaf extract or olive oil, aloe vera extract, ginseng, bee propolis, quercetin, and even melatonin. And I want to tell you about aloe vera extract that, people have used that forever, to heal like burns and things like that. But you can even use it in the GI tract. You can buy just where the juice of it has been made into a liquid, and you can actually drink that, and it can be healing to your gut.
Oh, and my favorite's MSM.
Yeah, well, why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Well, the thing about MSM is that, and I should probably know more about my genetics and stuff, but I haven't done that yet. But MSM was like a get out of jail free card for me. And yet I know for some people taking large doses of it can really kick their butts, but I could take really large doses of it and really benefit from it, which I guess is just another one of those anecdotal stories that proves it's not one size fits all for everybody. But even now, certainly when I was in the thick of oxalate dumping, MSM would sometimes bring me through a dump where I would see things happening. So I knew the dump was happening. Maybe I had cloudy urine, maybe I had some sandy stools, maybe I had some stuff like that going on, or maybe my sleep was a bit off, but I would have nothing else. Like MSM would just suppress all of my other kinds of issues, joint pain or gut stuff, or not being able to digest my food, or like full-blown crazy insomnia, or like, and the mood irritability, like stuff like that would make me crazy. And MSM seemed to take a good 80 or 90% of those symptoms offline for me. And I would have this little thing that I would realize, okay, the dump's still ongoing, so I'm going to keep taking these really high doses of MSM. But yeah, clearly some of these inflammasome inhibitors may work better for one person than another, and you might have to trial and error until you find your sweet spot, even with dose. But MSM is my favorite friend. I have it on hand here all the time.
And please let them know, like, you might buy a bottle of it. It might be 500 milligrams, but people use MSM in huge gram doses.
Yeah, huge. And I buy it as a plain powder because it's cheaper that way. And I have a code where people can buy it through Pure Bulk. If they're interested, they can reach out, because for sure the cost that's added by encapsulation or tableting can be a lot to a supplement. You can do much better. I saw Patricia with her hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about sulforaphane, but go ahead and finish.
Oh, I don't have anything else to add except that, it's been such a great supplement for me and my family. And yet I'm always really cautious if I have a client and I'm going to suggest MSM, because for some people, they have to come in with teeny tiny amounts and they have to be really careful because it can really kick their butts. Anyhow, go ahead on the sulforaphane, because I don't know enough about it, Patricia, and I'm curious.
Well, actually, I was just going to say that that's probably for us in my family one of the easiest ones to get in everybody, because it's lovely, it's tasty, it's easy to do. and it's just broccoli sprouts. And you can just buy the seeds, you know, to sprout them, and you put them on a little container with some, you know, some water, and you give it some moisture, and 3 days later you have this beautiful source of sulforaphane, which is absolutely amazing, and it's tasty, and you can put it in anything, in an omelet, in a salad, in a sandwich, you know, as decoration for something. And it's just a very, very easy way to get, you know, an inflammasome inhibitor. And it's great when, you know, my kids have like cramps, like menstrual cramps and things like that. It's just like, give it to me. You know, they really start seeing the difference. So there's
That's
another.
really interesting, because I used to do sprouting as well and haven't done it in ages. And we really did. You're right. It's very tasty. It's a nice way to get a supplement. You don't have to like swallow a pill, another pill, or drink down something really nasty tasting. MSM, just for those who are interested, it's not the tastiest thing in the world, but I like it. Its effects so much. I never worry about the taste. I just put it in a big glass of water and down it goes.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
you know, before I went to graduate school, I worked in a vitamin store for about 6 years part-time. And I heard a lot of stories from a lot of people, and I would always ask them questions about, well, why are you taking this? And, you know, is it doing any good for you? And, you know, so I had a lot of interesting conversations with people. And I knew kind of what people, you know, were doing. And so one of the things I think is really strange is that this was years ago. I mean, this was before my daughter was born, and she's 31. So we're talking about many, many years ago. But a lot of the things that have been used for years and people knew they worked, we didn't know why they worked, but then later discoveries showed how they worked. And so it's not like the people that are older than us, like, you know, generations back, had their brains turned off. They were making observations about what worked and what didn't work. And maybe they didn't know the mechanism, but now we're learning the mechanism. So that's kind of exciting to see science confirming some of these old wives' tales. And like, I remember having a long conversation with one of my good friends when her mother died, because she found this book on apple cider vinegar that was her mother's, and who knows how old it was. But it was something that a lot of grandmothers were using, and now we find it's an inflammasome inhibitor, and we didn't even know about the inflammasome until 2002. So, you know, time takes care of those gaps in our knowledge.
Absolutely. The omega-3 oils, that's something else that I've seen incredible changes with, incredible changes. I've seen, I'm thinking of a particular man that had chronic fatigue and then was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. He had 11 of the 12 pain points being extremely painful or excruciatingly painful. And he started taking the omega-3, and now he climbs mountains, he does all sorts of crazy things and works around the home and whatever. And this is a man that's hitting, no, he's probably past 70 already. And I mean, it's just been incredible. And so a lot of these things might seem like simple, or it's like, oh, what I have, it's not going to be taken care of with, you know, some fish oil and some sprouts. But you would be amazed, especially now that we understand the mechanism and we understand why some things don't work for us. We do know also the mechanism why some things might work for us. So it's really worth the try.
Just want to say that our friend and fellow wizard Karla, it doesn't look like she can get back on the meeting. So we will have to pick up with essential oils on another session, and we can continue talking about the other things that are involved in pain management, because we're not going to be able to get Karla back on, it looks like. So.
Well, I also just want to say this little quickie thing is that I the first mom that I ever, got to know in the autism field was somebody that I probably have known for 30 years or something like that. But I got to meet her son with autism when they came to my father's funeral, which was 20 years ago. And I hadn't heard from her in, probably 10 years. And she suddenly called me and she told me that her son he's now like 57, but at 55, he started using fish oils and he's talking for the first time in his life.
Wow.
I've had that. I have a 15-year-old that started talking. So it's been biblical. I mean, really, it's been so amazing, some of these things that you see. And it's just because we're working with nature. We're working with, whatever is missing. So
They're supplying nutrients as opposed to trying to interrupt chemistry. And there's a reason why that chemistry is running the way it is. And here we are in trying to interrupt rather than I hate to use the term root cause because it gets so overused in the nutrition world. But if you go back and figure out why the body's doing what it's probably doing it for a good reason. It's just we're getting a result we don't want, or we're getting kind of a misfire or something. And if you go back and in some cases just provide the nutrient. I mean, Susan, your experience with calcium D-glucarate and being able to manage pain from a broken limb is like, for me, that was a huge eye opener. One more time, like, it's not like it's the first time that I've ever had a huge eye opener about what diet does for you, but that's huge. Like, how many people would even guess that that's possible? Never mind that it was actually done, right?
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's a safety thing too. I mean, you saw all the bad stuff that can happen to you with opiates. And, goodness knows we've heard that, with the fentanyl crisis that's going on right now with all the stuff coming up through the open border, there are serious risks to some of the medications that something like calcium D-glucarate, as an example, it's really pretty safe,
Yeah.
And you have to kind of weigh, the risks, which is more risky, this or that, and we're certainly getting a lot more information now that allows us to do that risk benefit ratio.
Yeah, and in a lot more reasonable way, where we have a reasonable understanding of what's working and what's not. And if you'd like I can either share the poster, Patricia, or you can, because I've got it up on my screen too. So check and see if you've got powers now.
Oh, it's whichever you want. I just wanted to, to have it available for people to see.
Yeah, because we started out with this. This is Patricia's lovely overview of our topic for today. And the one thing that's here, in addition to essential oils, that we were going to have a discussion about is arginine and citrulline, as well as magnesium. And have you actually used arginine or citrulline, Patricia, or has that been one that's not been on your list of toolkit items?
Actually, we haven't had a lot of issues with pain here. So I can't, we've used citrulline for a while, and I remember it was really good and really positive, but not for pain. So
But not for pain. Yeah.
I cannot talk about it over pain.
I tried it here, and I tried it with my kids. Not citrulline though, the arginine. And it was funny. It was really hit or miss for us. Like, if it hadn't worked after 3 capsules at 500 milligrams, then I stopped because it didn't look like it was going to help. But usually we were doing other things. And actually, when in doubt, magnesium was never a bad thing. in this household. Even if it was just reasonable support. But Karla had looked up some links. I'll do that and let you guys chat a bit more about the Inflammasome and other things that we're using, if you would like, while I do a hunt.
Sure.
Because Karla had actually found some great links for PubMed and for magnesium and pain relief.
Magnesium was incredible. I mean, I was looking with Susan, you know, when we were talking about it, and she just had this complete list, and it was like on the top things that you could do to diminish the pain, because it increases the analgesia and it makes you calmer, because you also have to remember that when you are nervous and you're tickly and you're irked and you're, you know, your anxiety is going up because you don't feel good, you're that much more sensitive to pain. So part of it was the part that, you know, it calms you down, it relaxes the muscles, it does all these wonderful things. And then on top of it, it increases the effect of analgesia. So it was really interesting, all of the studies that she was listing.
If you want to take down the share of the guide for a second, I'll show just a first screen of what's available on PubMed, because it really is quite astonishing how many things there are here that actually will like work in different ways to deal with pain. So we've got headaches and magnesium. We've got management of pain using magnesium sulfate. That's Epsom salts for those of you who are wondering. And one of the first things that we recommend as a potential support for oxalate in general. We've got magnesium in gynecological practice for those of us who get vulvodynia or IC kinds of symptoms. This might be an indicator here. Ketamine and magnesium for neuropathic pain. Karla had read this one to us earlier. A guideline for tonsillectomy. Like, who would ever guess that magnesium would work after tonsillectomy? Menstrual migraine, dysmenorrhea, hallux valgus repair surgery. I do not know what that is, but again, this is post-operative pain management. So that's not like the junior leagues. That's the big leagues when you're dealing with pain. Pain management after open liver resection. And then this one, which looks really interesting, which is combination pharmacology or pharmacotherapy for the treatment of fibromyalgia. So this is only the first screen of 157 results for magnesium in pain. So there's lots here.
I want to point out too that we know that oxalate, you know, will bind the calcium if it's around where it is, but its second choice seems to be magnesium. And so it kind of makes sense that we might get more deficient in magnesium just because of the effects of having high levels of oxalate in our bodies. And so it's certainly, you know, I think if someone asked me the question, what is the one supplement that more people that you've talked to who have an oxalate problem respond to positively, it would be magnesium. What do you say, ladies?
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah, so
Absolutely.
common.
No, I mean, hands down, absolutely. Brenda is telling us that hallux surgery is bunion surgery.
Bunion surgery, I just saw that. Thank
So
you, Brenda.
Thank you, Brenda. That's really painful. So,
and we have a question from June. Where do you get the regular kind of omega-3 fish oil? Because she's a carnivore. I don't know that I have a particular suggestion, but I would certainly be looking for, you know, something that's as processed as cleanly as possible without additives.
you want something that's tested that it has no heavy metals.
Yeah.
and possibly from small fish, so it's more sustainable. And you want also, something that doesn't oxidize very quickly. So because that's some of the problems with some of the omegas, and some studies that I've seen, that the actual active time from the time you open the bottle and you have it is hours. Whereas where you have some additions of things, like vitamin D or other things, then you can extend that activity, that potency, basically, for the omegas. And
Wow. Hours?
yeah, there's a really interesting, there was a really interesting study on the potency of omegas, but I lost my train of thought. Oh, there is a very big Norwegian company that does like most of the fish oils for most of the brands. It's sold via Amazon, and it's called Ilse, something like that. I'll put it in the comments. And they are like the biggest ones that have like the really nice. Carlson is one. Carlson is also a good one. I'm using one that has olive oil added to it, so that it extends that potency period. And but it's a really interesting area of study. I'm just
and for those who have salicylate issues, the olive oil could be a problem. So yeah, if you have a suggestion on somebody else that they can use too, Patricia, that's great.
There's some that are like pre-digested, so that they're easy, especially for people that have like no gallbladder or things like that, or that have problems with other things.
Like me, who
and
burps every bloody oil ever.
I have no idea if the vegan out of algae is causing problems with some people with salicylates. I don't know. I don't have that information. If any of you know, I would be very happy to, to share whatever experience you have.
Well, I also want to do a plug for knowing whether you are someone that has issues with glucuronidation, because it was so huge to find that out in my family, because it explains so much. And you can get that tested. Don't go by 23andMe, because they don't test enough. But if you do like a whole genome test for yourself, you can find out all of these weird genes that you may have a variant that makes it work not so well. And I even found, I don't know if I've even talked about this, but I have an AGXT polymorphism that makes it where it doesn't work as well. Who would know? But you can learn that kind of thing with this whole genome sequencing. And especially if you know people in your family, like my mother, who reacted to absolutely every medication she ever took. I mean, it was just, she had the longest list of weird reactions to medicines of anybody I've ever known. And so if that runs in your family, then that would be even better reason to be checking on your genetics. And it's concrete, and it's something that you can share. I mean, you can have that information with you when you go to the hospital. What if you have to go to the hospital with an emergency? If you don't have that information there, then they may give you something that you would react to. And so that's just what I'm saying. It's good information to have.
Absolutely. And always, please remember, here at the end, everybody's an individual. We've been giving some general advice. That does not constitute medical advice. So we don't know your specific history. We don't know your specific genetics or conditions or whatever. But just, these might be some things interesting for you to start researching, trying, discussing with your healthcare practitioner. And remember that some of the really old remedies, like Susan said, are still valid, you know, heat, cold, drinking water, you know, doing those essential oils. There's, we're going to be talking about those, you know, when Karla comes back, but there's a lot of posts and things and testimonials on how essential, you know, how essential oils could be really, really effective. Epsom salts, caffeine, even relaxation exercises, meditation, you know.
Meditation. Apparently there was research done recently, 3 days in a row, 20 minutes meditating, and you could reduce the amount of pain you were feeling. So it doesn't have to be a supplement or a drug necessarily to work.
You know, there have been reports of, you know, people going through open heart surgery with hypnosis, you know, there's all their different things. And but the most important thing, and I think that's one of the themes that we've been touching again and again and again in these Wizards of Ox Live, is the fact that everybody is an individual. So we cannot say one size fits all. And so just keep that in mind, and be safe, you know, and we'll let somebody else close.
Well, I was the one who started, so I can be the one who closes this time. And so thank you everyone for coming and listening to us live. We will stay on a few minutes after we've shut things down. Oh, Patricia has one more thing.
Yes, I have 2 more things, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. Thank you. We have 2 cookbooks on Amazon for sale, and they've both been written by our beautiful wizards. So the smoothies and juices, the lower oxalate smoothies and juices, is by both Monique Attinger and Karla Wiersma. And then the special occasions book, it was written by Karla. And we have another another grand cookbook from Karla with almost or about 400 recipes that are all lower oxalate, with all of the love that she's been giving, you know, trying to give all these really high quality foodie recipes to the low oxalate world. And it's coming in weeks, so wait for it. And the last thing that I wanted to say is that we've been thinking that a lot of people are having trouble following these lives for 1 hour. So we're going to be putting a poll in the group, you know, about what kind of themes you would like us to cover, and we were going to try to make it shorter. Maybe, you know, a smaller span of a theme, you know, something maybe a little bit more specific, but the idea is that it's going to be maximum 30 minutes. So watch out for the poll, watch out for the books, and just be well. Have a lovely weekend.
So we'll sign off for now. All of our lovely TLO people who have been here, thank you for being here. We appreciate your questions. We appreciate your support by liking and subscribing to our YouTube channel. And we will look forward to speaking with you again. But for now, we are signing off. Thanks, everyone.